Welcome to Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to New Mexicans by State Employees Credit Union, who have been proudly serving the families of New Mexico locally and abroad since 1958. State Employees Credit Union is ready to help you and your family with all your financial goals. And now, Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I am Diane, and I am smiling because we have a great show for you today. We're actually going to talk some sports. Well, politics as usual, talk about state government, talk about the legislative session, which is running strong right now, but we're going to talk a little bit about sports, so stay with us. Right after this, we'll talk about a former UNM offensive line person and someone who's going to play in this upcoming Senate-House basketball game and win it for the Senate. Stay tuned right after this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Are you ready for a more rewarding financial experience? Get local decisions on loans and accounts from people that live and work in your communities. Join State Employees Credit Union today and start getting rewarded. Thank you. Also get up to $250 cash when we refinance your auto loan. Stop by one of our offices, give us a call, or go online and find out just how easy it is to make the switch to a locally owned and operated financial institution.
Man, I love my credit union.
Me too.
On the program today, I'm going to be very proud to introduce you to a new state senator who's not only going to save our state from corruption, because he's got a number of bills to fight corruption, that's one reason he ran, but also he's going to save the Senate because he's going to help us at 6'6" tall win the basketball tournament, which is a fundraiser. Welcome to the program, Senator Mark Moores of Bernalillo County, Albuquerque, District 21. Welcome.
Thank you, Diane. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been a big fan for many, many years, and so it's really exciting for me to sit here across the chairs from you, and we can talk about New Mexico's and issues that are facing our state.
And we do have those issues, but like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about sports. You are a former UNM four-year offensive line football player. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a long time ago. I guess we're turning this program into a sports show. It's going to be a lot of fun. But that was a long time ago. I did attend the University of New Mexico on a football scholarship and had a fantastic experience. And I was able to get a free college education out of that and just had a wonderful time. But I do bleed cherry and silver. I love the University of New Mexico and my Lobos, and it is going to be a lot of fun. And so that was part of my background. I received my bachelor's degree at the University of New Mexico as an undergrad and then went back to school and got a master's in business afterwards. So UNM runs deep in my family, and I love the program and the school down there.
So you played football for them, but now you're going to be playing basketball for them. Not really in the pit, but here at Santa Fe High School on Friday, March 1st at 7 p.m. It's the annual State Senate versus State House of Representative basketball, charity basketball for UNM Cancer Research, and you're going to be donning a UNM Lobo basketball jersey. Not football, but basketball. At 6'6", we're counting on you, Senator Moores.
Thank you, Diane. It's a lot of fun. We're really looking forward to it. And it's a great way to keep in shape. And it is an annual charity basketball game. And again, it's going to be at not St. Michael's, at Santa Fe High School Gymnasium at 7 o'clock on March 1st. And really, it's a fundraiser for cancer research at UNM. But it is a lot of fun, a great way to keep in shape. And we're going to be looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. You got a lot of good athletes, believe it or not, in the both House of Representatives and the Senate. A lot of very competitive folks out there. You know, a lot of politicians who run for political office are also competitive, and so that translates into athletics also. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it, but more importantly, we're going to raise some money for cancer research to help UNM.
And it is open to the public, so I'm just going to say the date again. It's great fun. I mean, you see, maybe you hear it on the news, you hear it on this program, you see them on this program, you can watch them wearing, some of them, the House will be donning the jerseys from New Mexico State, and I think the Senate's going to be wearing the UNM Lobo jerseys, but they're going to be playing basketball. It is a fundraiser, and it is open to the public. So again, mark your calendars for that Friday, March 1st, 7 p.m., Santa Fe High, the Senate versus the state, and we're going to win because last year was down to the buzzer, and I had video, and actually it's on my YouTube channel. You can go to YouTube and see last year's highlights of the basketball game, but there was a buzzer shot, which they didn't count, but the proof is in the video because the shot did go off at the buzzer and made it in. But they didn't argue too much about it because it was a fundraiser.
And it is for charity, and it's going to be a lot of fun, especially for you Lobo fans. Come out and cheer on and get the Lobos against the Aggies, because we do wear those jerseys. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of friendly rivalry between the Senate and the House.
And that's what makes it fun. So please, we welcome you and encourage you to come out for that. But again, I say you ran. We're glad you're on the team because of that 6'6", but also you ran because you felt there was a type of corruption, an atmosphere of corruption throughout the whole state in many facets.
New Mexico, I believe, has been held back for so long because we have a culture of corruption that has permeated into state government. And I decided to run last year because I was tired of that culture of corruption. New Mexico deserves much better. I ran against a person who was appointed to the seat in what was called a backroom deal, just because she happened to be a president of a powerful special interest group. And that was wrong. And so I decided to run, and I took the message to the voters in the district, and we won overwhelmingly, despite being outspent by that special interest money, $8 to 1. So,
and I think per vote, did you calculate the votes? How much each vote? I mean, all at
I
one
think
point.
she spent something like $35 per vote that she got, and I spent like $4 per vote. So that message that New Mexico is being held back because of the corruption and the old way of doing business really resonated with the voters in the district that I ran in. So that's what I wanted to do in Santa Fe. So I've come to Santa Fe. I've introduced some legislation to really target corruption, because New Mexico deserves better than the pay-to-play politics of the past. We deserve better, and I really believe it's an economic development issue, because if companies don't have trust in our government and the way we're doing business in New Mexico, and they feel like our government is corrupt and there's politicians who just have their hands out, we will never get the investment in our state to create jobs and help our families develop and grow and have good schools without those good jobs.
Or those businesses are going to come who are used to paying under the table. We don't want perhaps those businesses. So you're looking at making sure that they know we're ready for business, but not the shady deals where they have to pay.
We don't want those kind of businesses. We want good jobs in New Mexico, not the old style politics that the state is known for. We got to put an end to that, and our families deserve better here in New Mexico.
We're going to run through Senator Moore's, a lot of your legislation, very interesting things, but you're not new to the state capitol, to the state senate, because you were the you worked for Lieutenant Governor Walter Bradley, who was the president of the Senate for 8 years. And you're as chief of staff.
That was an amazing experience. When I was a young man, shortly out of college, I was able to work for the Lieutenant Governor, and what an educational opportunity that was. Governor Bradley and Governor Johnson really helped define what I was talking about earlier about anti-corruption. After 8 years of them in office, there wasn't one single scandal that I can recall. And it was just an era of integrity. Despite the politics of everything, everything was done above board. And that's really, as a young person, as I was developing what I wanted to do for public service, I really took to heart. And then when I saw what happened after that and saw the corruption that was happening in Santa Fe, I just got tired of it. And I sat down with my family, and when the Senate seat became open, we really had a heart-to-heart conversation about what we needed to do to improve New Mexico. And as a family, we decided to move forward and make this run. And now we're up here in Santa Fe fighting for the rest of the people in the district, and hopefully we can start moving the needle in New Mexico.
You were upset about the corruption. We hear about it all the time. We have a number of our politicians in federal prison, right now, maybe ready to get out. But let's go down some of they're all interesting bills. But which one would you like to start with, Senator?
Let's talk about a little bit the corruption issues. There's two bills I'm really excited about that really need to happen. The first one has to do with how we throw out corrupt politicians who violate our public trust.
The criminal that's the remove from public office for felonies. It's SB 238. Remove from public office for felonies. It doesn't always happen. They could be a felon and still stay in office. Tell me a little bit about that.
It is shocking in New Mexico that we've had felons stay in public office after they've been convicted of felonies. And also, my bill goes a little bit step further. I want to take their cash from them. Kick them out of office, take their cash. What has happened in the past is when officials have left office, they've been able to keep their campaign donations that they received beforehand and then give them to their family and friends or other words.
Again, stress that they're convicted of a felony. They tend maybe to stay in office.
They could stay in office and then they get their campaign money.
Their campaign,
that's not right.
That people out there are thinking we're going to support this candidate. It's for them to run for office, but instead they keep this well-intentioned money, most likely, that they were given, and they get to keep that money.
And that is wrong.
Why?
When they have violated the public trust, they should not only be kicked out of office immediately once they've been convicted of a felony, that campaign money should go back to the taxpayers because that official violated the public trust. They should not be rewarded with that money after they leave office. That money should go to the taxpayers to help fund state government operations.
Because they're no longer a candidate anymore. That's why they raise this money for, again, well-intentioned of the people who gave them these donations to run for office, to use it if they need it for office, but they're no longer in office. So you're feeling, why should they keep these campaign contributions when they're no longer a candidate?
Exactly. Why should they profit from when they're already have been convicted of a crime? That money should go to the taxpayers because they have violated the taxpayers' trust.
And what's interesting is when they're in office, they've violated it because they're using their public office perhaps to do a felony. I mean, they wouldn't be able to perhaps do some of these felonies like these shady deals if they weren't in office.
Exactly. And they violated our trust. They should not be rewarded for that. They should be kicked out of office, and they should not be able to walk away with a paycheck afterwards.
Paycheck, these campaign paychecks. What are people saying about this bill, Senator Morris?
I think people are excited about it. The Attorney General, Gary King, is supportive of the bill, same as the Secretary of State, Diane Duran. So it's a really good bipartisan bill that really helps us address some of the corruption that's happened in New Mexico. And as taxpayers, enough is enough. We've got to put an end to this.
Can you give me some of the examples of the politicians who actually stayed in office after being convicted of felonies?
The most noteworthy was recently the Jerome Block, who was on our State Public Regulation Commission. He was convicted of a crime, but he wouldn't immediately step down from office. He still stayed in office for a few extra weeks. As soon as he was convicted, he should have been out of office immediately.
But there wasn't any mechanism to get him out of office because he was elected by the people.
And this bill would actually put that in place. So you get convicted from a felony, you're out of office, you do not get to take your campaign cash with you.
Something probably the public just expects happens, but we need this mechanism, we need this bill in order for it to be in law to happen.
And I want to send a message from the taxpayers and the people of New Mexico to politicians that we will not tolerate this, that you will not be able to stay in office and be able to take your money with you. It's just not right, and I want to make sure it's in law so that politicians know that they will never be able to get away with this.
You have another bill, Senator Moore's Senate Bill 207, criminal restitution requirements. Criminal restitution requirements. Tell me a little bit about that bill.
This is a tragic situation in New Mexico. We have a situation that was brought to my attention from some constituents their son was killed by a drunk driver. The drunk driver was driving and partying all day with a group of friends. They were headed to another party in the East Mountains of Albuquerque, and they ran over this boy as he was riding home from school on his bike. Long or arduous court case, and the trauma and the heartache that this family experienced was unbearable to me as a father. I can't imagine going through that. The person ended up being convicted, spent only 3.5 years in prison. But part of his order when he was convicted of this crime was he was supposed to pay restitution to the family to cover the cost of the ambulance, the air flight, helicopter flight to the hospital, and the funeral cost. So when this gentleman got out of prison, he was required to pay restitution to cover this cost that the family actually incurred, besides not just the cost and the emotional trauma of them losing their son, but the actual money that they paid for the helicopter flight to the hospital to try to save their son's life. Well, this gentleman owed $14,000 or $15,000, only paid $750 over 2 years while he was on probation. As soon as he was off probation, he walks away. He refused to pay any more restitution.
The court ordered him to pay $15,000, but once he was off probation, there was no mechanism to get it from him?
So the family was once again shoulder with the burden of trying to get this simple amount of money that was ordered to them. And the loophole, if they're not on probation anymore, the loophole in New Mexico says they can walk away from it, and that's wrong. We want to make sure that they have, the families who have been victimized in situations like this, have the ability to go and get that restitution, to help them with their closure, to make sure that they're financially whole. They can never be brought whole emotionally after such a crime, but financially we can make sure they're brought whole. And also, the perpetrators need to be be held responsible. Yeah, they do some time in prison, but they need to have that closure too to make sure that they are held accountable and that they pay this restitution. The family that this happened to would have had to go to court and file a civil lawsuit and hired another attorney who would have then taken a third of the proceeds from them to get this money from them. So we want a mechanism in the state that helps protect the victims and their families from these crimes so that they aren't having to shoulder even further burdens.
Once they expect the court makes this, declares that they have to be paid this, they figure, okay, we'll be paid. There is a mechanism when the person's on probation, they check, that's probably one of the rules of their probation is to pay restitution. Correct? Otherwise, they violate the probation?
And what I've heard from a number of victims' families is that they don't even follow that. It's sadly, a lot of times that they're not consistent with the payments. It's really difficult to get those payments out.
Even when they're on probation?
Even when they're on probation.
So it sounds like that should be a violation of probation.
You would think, yes.
So what does your bill do?
It creates a mechanism where the perpetrators are actually, the judges will actually order restitution to them. So once they're out of prison and they're on probation and afterwards, that there's a mechanism so those victims can actually get their money back from from those who committed the crime.
But how, through their wages or through what?
That would create a court order so that they wouldn't have to go back to civil court, so they can garnish wages, they can file liens against them for their IRS returns, just like we do with, similar to what we do with people that skirt their responsibility for child support. If you skirt your responsibility for child support, there's a mechanism through the district attorneys and other offices that you can go and garnish wages. Victims of crimes deserve that same kind of protection. We don't have
that at this time?
No, we do not.
Just the order. We got the order, but no mechanism behind it. We got an order
with no teeth in it.
Oh boy, okay. Why would people oppose this? Why would any state legislator oppose this bill?
I don't see how you could oppose this, but you know, I've learning in my 1 month in the legislature, there are certain special interest groups out there who do oppose these common sense things that the voters want. And it's up to us to go up there and fight for these issues and fight for New Mexico families. Well,
thank you for bringing that to our attention here on Issues and Answers. That's kind of a new one. You'd think there would be a mechanism in place at this point. You do have another one, public property naming process. We've heard of this bill. Our fine friend, Senator Mark Boitano, who's no longer in the legislature. He's working in Albuquerque, back to his business. Worked a number of years on this, and I think you've helped coin this monuments to me. We see that all around the state, all these buildings named with taxpayer dollars after people who are still living, and some of those end up being criminals and being thrown into prison.
And this goes back, this bill that Senator Boitano carried, and I've talked to Senator Boitano about it, we need to get this done in New Mexico. Taxpayers should not be building monuments to politicians. There are plenty of people in the state who have done great work, have a historical impact on our history and our culture that should be honored. It shouldn't just be named after a politician who has the ability to name a building after themselves, using taxpayers to pay for the building. It's just not common sense. And we have had some very high-profile cases. For instance, Manny Aragon, who is currently in federal prison, had buildings named after him, had libraries at schools named after him. So we actually had to go back afterwards and take his name off these buildings at extra cost and expense and quite a bit of embarrassment.
And I think there's a librarian still in Albuquerque, maybe the name is still there?
Worse than that, we had a county commission here in New Mexico that decided to name a new building after the 3 county commissioners who are sitting on the county commission. Oh. That is just silly, and the taxpayer should be upset about that. And so my proposal is let's let history decide these things. Let's let a committee decide who has had the historical impact on our state, and let them have a say in who is actually honored in this way. And quite frankly, I personally believe not every building needs to be named after a person. There is nothing wrong with calling the Department of Education building the Department of Education building. There's nothing wrong with calling the Environment building the Environment, because it lets the taxpayers and the public know what is happening in that building. There's no reason we have to name everything after some politician.
And again, it's the taxpayers who are paying for those buildings, so the clarity in communications to know what it is instead of a particular name of a former governor doesn't make perhaps sense because it isn't as clear as what it is.
Exactly.
And now you're saying politicians can decide themselves who to name the buildings after, but your bill would set up, so a commission would be set up. And does the person have to be passed on before the building is named after a public official?
That's one of the things I would like to see, is that you can't name a building after a current living person because of the situations where we've had where some people might have seemed to be public servants, but we don't know their full history. Let's history decide. Let's find out what their true impact over time was on our history and culture. I like to equate it, since we're talking about sports earlier, to the Baseball Hall of Fame. We don't name people to the Hall of Fame while they're still players. We wait until their careers are over, take a time period, 5 years, and then we evaluate the history in their entire careers that they had in baseball. I say we do the same thing. Yeah. Let's have a cooling off period. Let's name a building, if we need to name a building after someone, after their entire life's body of work.
Very interesting. Of course, who is a cyclist now who, you know, they find out about all these athletes and different things, the drugging that they're doing, and they sound great, they look wonderful on screen, but when it comes down to it, as you say, let history determine.
Exactly.
All the skeletons in the closets perhaps come out and find out if they are worthy of having this monument made to them.
Exactly. We need to stop monuments to me, and this is a mechanism to do that.
Changing from sports and monuments to little pets and animals. Actually, I shouldn't say little pets, but there's some hardworking canine dogs that aren't just the vicious ones, but actually do the drug sniffing, right? And sometimes I think state law, you're looking at another law changing or adjusting a loophole that they're considered property. These dogs that do a lot of work for our police, state police, are considered property when they're retired.
That is right. And this is something a constituent brought to me. And we have drug sniffing dogs at our Department of Corrections. These aren't attack dogs. These are just dogs that are taught how to sniff out contraband. Well, as we find out, they're owned by the state, just like a desk, just like a used car or used computer. And our current law says that any property that is owned by the state, once it becomes obsolete, we have to destroy it or we have to auction it off. Well, these are dogs that have become a valued part of our society. The trainers grow to love them. They're handlers, they're part of the families. And now the law says that we have to put these dogs down when their careers are over, after they've worked so hard for the state and for the taxpayers.
Or even, could they be auctioned?
And that was something I was very worried about. What if they were auctioned off and we had nefarious people show up at the auction who had a drug interest? They could buy these dogs, and these dogs would be on the street doing who knows what. So we got to protect the dogs from this fate, which is, it's tugged on my heart as a pet owner, as many of us are. We need to protect our pets. And so what I like to see is have an exemption for these animals, so that way the handlers or the trainers, the people who know how to handle them and who have developed a bond with them, can keep these dogs after their careers are over. So that way the dog gets to enjoy its sunset years in retirement, just like the rest of us want to do after we retire.
Instead of being destroyed or auctioned off.
We don't want to be destroyed and auctioned off.
Again, something that just kind of makes sense. How wonderful.
It's good common sense legislation, and that's what I want to do. When I ran for office, I wanted to put it into culture of corruption and just have some common sense up here in Santa Fe, which seems to be lacking for so long.
Very refreshing. This is a fun show, Senator. You've got another one, Senate Bill 465, unemployment benefits and drug use. That sounds like another common sense. Unemployment benefits and drug use. Do they go together? Tell me a little bit about that.
And that's another common sense issue. If you're on the job and you're hurt, you show up, you've been drinking or you're on drugs, why would you get your benefits when you have done that and put your co-workers at risk? It's a safety issue. It's a workplace safety issue. It just doesn't make sense that the taxpayer should pay for someone who was drunk or on drugs and got hurt on the job. Why are the rest of us shouldering the burden for their stupidity? It's not fair. It makes it for unsafe work environments. And again, it's a common sense pro-business idea. Why are we employing these folks who are going to put their co-workers and put businesses at risk?
And maybe discourage people, though, too, from doing drugs and alcohol on the job.
There was a high-profile case in Albuquerque. Person shows up to work when he was intoxicated, falls off a truck, gets hurt, and is immediately fired, but then is able to collect benefits. That's just wrong as a taxpayer. That person made the decision to show up work inebriated. He should not be able to collect benefits afterwards.
What's the likelihood of this one?
Well, I'm really surprised on this. Again, special interests get involved in these. And as a freshman in the legislature, I am kind of surprised that some of the unions who are supposed to be about workplace safety, I mean, that's why they were created hundreds of years ago because of unsafe work environments. They actually stand up against these kind of bills. It just doesn't make sense. This is about making workers in the workplace safer, and yet some unions are opposed to this. So I am very confused by that opposition because they're the ones who should be standing up and saying, hey, we need to make our work environment safer.
Senator Moores, this is just very delightful hearing about all these bills and very refreshing bills. You walked your district, District 21. Tell me where that is located in Albuquerque, Bernalillo County.
I walked door to door more than once in that whole district, and that's the far northeast heights of Albuquerque. So basically the La Cueva, El Dorado, Del Norte High School area, very far the northern part of Albuquerque.
And did you hear anything that was surprising to you other than encouraging you to fight this culture of corruption here in Santa Fe?
People want a change in Santa Fe. They want to end this culture of corruption. They also want to just have some common sense, and they also wanted the government off their back. They see government doing some silly things that doesn't make a lot of sense, and they want some common sense up here in Santa Fe. So I think that's pretty statewide. People are tired of what's happening up here in Santa Fe at the Roundhouse. And I'm really excited that this legislative session, a third of us are brand new. We had historic turnover this year. And so a lot of us have very many different political opinions, but I think a lot of us came up here wanting to change and provide some accountability to New Mexico.
And people, you're there to listen, and a number of your bills are from your constituents or from people telling you, hey, this is broken in state government, help fix it.
That's what I want to do. I want to help fix New Mexico, and that's why I ran, and that's what I hope to do. Thank
you so much for being a public servant, again, a volunteer state senator. Appreciate all that time and effort, and for playing for UNM, and again, helping that program. I'm sure they're glad to have had you. And I'm sure that you're glad to see what's going on with the program now. And again, for playing playing in this upcoming basketball game that I'm so excited about, having some of the 6'6" on the field, on the court, I should say. Well, I'm excited. It's a lot of time and energy up here. Time away from my family, time away from work, but it's worth it. I think public service should be something that everyone gets involved in. And one way or another, through charity, public service, running for office. Let's try to make our state a better place. Thank you so much. My guest today, Senator Martin Moores of Bernalillo County. Thanks for watching. I'm Diane Kinderwater. We'll see you next time. Have a great week with your family. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Are you ready for a more rewarding financial experience? Get local decisions on loans and accounts from people that live and work in your communities. Join State Employees Credit Union today and start getting rewarded. Thank you. Also get up to $250 cash when we refinance your auto loan. Stop by one of our offices, give us a call, or go online and find out just how easy it is to make the switch to a locally owned and operated financial institution. Man, I love my credit union. Me too.
Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to New Mexicans by State Employees Credit Union, who have been proudly serving the families in New Mexico locally and abroad since 1958. State Employees Credit Union is ready to help you and your family with all your financial goals and is the exclusive sponsor of Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater in order to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a DVD copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.cc or call us at 505-345-1991.